Hey guys, this is going to be part 6 of what I believe about God and why. And at this time, I am with Harlan, and I've been preaching the Bible's the mark of the beast. I've been getting in the spirit. I've seen demons. I've seen ghosts. I've seen the devil, I thought, all these things. And I had many prophecies, revelations, amazing visions that I could have never known, words I could have never heard. I've gone 14 hours away in the car to go to a place that God told me to go. He's given me miracles and everything else and helping me. But while I'm out on this farm and where God sent us, Harlan's making videos against me and putting subtle little things out there, and stuff like that. Well, that didn't sit right with me. How can two people that know God, that get in the Spirit, that are called of God, that how can they be seeing different things? How can he think that what I'm doing is wrong after he told me to do it in the first place? How can he think this and how can he be saying this stuff about me? So I have in my mind that he's older than me, he must understand better, and I must be doing something wrong. So this great miracle that God gave us on this farm and him healing my finger and everything else and all the stuff that I can't even get into because it would take me a year to put this stuff up here. Um, so all this stuff, regardless of that, I feel terrible and condemned because what Harlan's saying in all of his videos. So I see this vision, two visions, which were actually telling me not to leave, but I misinterpret them as telling me to leave. Like I should leave this farm. So whenever I leave, first thing I do is text Harlan and then, hey guys, I understand now, blah blah blah. And but they still weren't happy. They still didn't like me anymore. I mean, they still played the game for a minute, but they still didn't like me anymore. And I go back because of them, reject what Jesus said, and then Jesus is mad at me. Like at one point, Jesus was mad at me for coming back and rejecting what he gave me for what Harlan and them had said. And my stomach hurt. I thought it was like my appendix or something. I felt like I was like blacking out. It was right in the appendix area. And I was hurting really bad and felt sick and felt like I was blacking out and stuff. And everybody in my brother's house, because I went back to my brother's house, and they're like, go to the hospital. You need to go to the hospital. And I was like, no, I know Jesus. I was like, you don't understand what I've seen. I know Jesus. I know all this stuff. I'm not going. So I told Jesus, I was like, look, I don't care. If you want to kill me, if I'm evil, kill me, and I will gladly go to hell. I will go to hell. Put me down there with the devils if I'm evil, because I'm sitting here and I'm waiting on you. And if you're going to heal me, you're going to heal me. And then Lena, my wife, gets in the spirit at the same time that I'm hurting really bad. And she sees Jesus walking, and she saw me laying on the ground, and I reached out and touched his robe. And whenever I touched his robe, I was healed in her vision. At the same time that she was having the vision, the pain went away. I literally jumped up and down on my stomach after that. I was not blacking out. I wasn't dizzy or anything. I wasn't feeling sick. I was absolutely fine. But before that happened, whenever I went back, Jesus was mad at me. Like I saw visions of Jesus being mad at me. I saw visions of me being in prison in the desert begging for water, and I couldn't get any water. But then whenever I found out what I did wrong, and I saw visions of Harlan and Diana, I never told you guys this in the last one, but whenever you see shoes in a vision, it's witnessing. If you have your shoes on, you're witnessing for Jesus. You're doing work for Jesus. If you don't have your shoes on, then you're not witnessing. And that's what I meant by going out to the farm and taking off our shoes, because all I cared about was witnessing, and I wouldn't have gone to that farm. I would have said no, because I would have said there's no internet out there. But he wanted me to stop witnessing until we got the farm. And then even that was another miracle. Like I didn't know who to get internet from or anything. And the night before I saw a vision of I had one neighbor, we were at a dead end dirt road. You had to drive up the road. Our house faced into the country into 400 acres of other people's properties and our property, and no neighbors except for one behind our house down a hill. And I saw power lines coming from their house whenever I was praying about the internet. So I went down and talked to that guy. And I said, hey man, what kind of internet can you get out here? Well, there was only one, and it was a local internet called Otelco. And so even that was showing me how to get the internet. Go down and talk to your neighbors. And it's just one local internet thing. You couldn't get AT&T or Charter or anything out there. So You could get no internet, and I mean maybe satellite. But so he told me what internet to get and everything. But I wound up leaving the farm after this. But I'm just trying to tell you the kind of things that were happening, the visions and everything. So I'm back up here in Tennessee, and I'm living with my brother in his house, and I get sick and everything. I see that Jesus is mad at me, but once I figured it out, what was wrong. I mean, I saw like black holes opening up and devils licking vomit around the hole and everything. Like this crystal was waved over a book and this black hole opened up. Like, because I had in my mind gone against the spirit. And to me, the spirit and everything that I had seen, what I had done was terrible. You know, what I had done was ridiculously horrible in my mind. So I'm seeing Jesus, he's mad at me. You know, I did this stuff against God. But then, whenever I figured out what the problem was, and I saw Harlan and Diana, this is where I was going with that. One of them held me down in a vision, and the other one tried to shove a shoe in my mouth. They were like, "Hold him down, let's get this shoe in his mouth." See, they were mad because I wasn't doing exactly what they wanted. They were mad at me for following the Spirit. They wanted me to follow them. They wanted me to have their witness and do their thing. And the moment that I didn't, they were angry and they started making videos and everything about me, you know? And that's how all preachers are. That's how they are. You cannot argue with them because they're the man of God. And in their mind, if you are arguing with them, there's something wrong with them. And they've seen too many miracles and everything. They don't want to believe anything like that, that there could be something wrong with them too. So he showed me that we were both wrong. He showed me other visions. He showed me going out because remember, he told me to go out to Missouri. He told me to do that. Well, in a vision, I saw this Amish buggy following me because we lived out towards Amish country again. There were some Amish people out there. I saw this Amish buggy following me, only it was Harlan and Diana in the buggy. And they said, we're going to wait right here until he fails and comes back. All right. So that's why they put that pressure on me. They were putting that pressure on me so that I would fail and come back so they could say, so they could have me back to exactly where they wanted me. You see what I'm saying? So I see this vision of Harlan and he cuts his hand. And the spirit said, there's blood on his hands on both roads. And it showed this road going out to Missouri and coming back to Missouri. And whenever I left, they were happy that they got me to leave. You see? So I'm seeing all this stuff, and now we're really having like some trouble. Not exactly yet. It's still church politics at this point. And they send me a message saying, "Hey, God has let us not to talk on the phone anymore," because I tried to call them whenever I was sick. And God has let us not to talk on the phone anymore, so we're not going to talk on the phone anymore, you know? So I really start noticing things that are wrong. I start noticing a lot of things that are wrong. Once this confusion happens, it opens up your mind to wait, these people might not be right. These things might not be right. So it opens you up to try to understand more things. So like I said though, I got healed again. I'm back up here. I got healed, and then I see a vision of Jesus letting me out of prison. He threw me some keys, and I almost lost them. They hit the prison bars, and I caught them and got out. And then I was really happy getting in the Spirit again, seeing Jesus again. Miracles, dreams, visions, revelations, right? So I go back online, and because of everything I'd seen, I'm still preaching the Bible's the mark of the beast, but we're kind of at odds with Harlan and Diana. Not exactly yet, but kind of. But then I have this, there's more stuff that happens here, but I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. All right, I'm still witnessing and everything else. And then I have this dream that tells me to go back to Ohio. And you remember, I told you that I painted with an evangelist who quit his job at S&K's Menswear and stayed in my town and gave me a paint job with him. Well, I talk to this guy all the time, and for some reason, God has always had me talking to preachers. The one preacher, Brother Carey, a long time ago that I didn't mention his name, but whenever I was like 13, 14, and I started going to church, my aunt would take me to church with her. And my other aunt up in Ohio, not the preacher's wife, so, but Brother Carey took me in and he talked to me about a lot of stuff. And then this evangelist talked to me about a lot of stuff. And my uncle talked to me about a lot of stuff. And Brother Young talked to me about a lot of stuff. So I had been really close to a bunch of different preachers, right? Okay, well, this evangelist though, and I'm saying that to tell you like, uh, it really gave me perspective on all these people being different, you know? And then we had the church group and everything else. But I see this vision that tells me to go back to Ohio. And then I said, why do you want me to go back to Ohio, Lord? And he shows me a picture of that evangelist guy, his house with a trailer there. It was like I wasn't going to be there real long, but I had something to do because he had this moving trailer outside, you know? It was a work trailer, but it can be pulled behind a car. So that made me think like I have something to do up there. So I thought, and I started praying, and I was like, "Do you want me to paint? Do you want me to start a paint business? You know?" Because I painted with this guy, Mark Stratton, and I was like, "Do you want me to start a paint business?" And so then I see bad visions about a paint business. Like I should not have a paint business. So, but anyway, we moved back up to Ohio. I'm still witnessing, and now at this point, what happens is, see, Harlan had made a video, and I made a video for clickbait. I wanted people to click on my video, you know, it's the smart thing to do. You read how to get views on YouTube, that's what you do. So I made a video called Jesus is Boner, saying that Jesus did not, he never got an erection, right? That it was different and all this stuff, like because he was born of a virgin, he wasn't born in sex. So he didn't know how to act out sin, and he could not produce that seed unless he would have blasphemed. So I make like this video on that. And then Harlan and Diana make a video against me called Filthy Conversation. And they're screaming on it. And they're like, you don't talk about my Savior like that. Well, this is the straw that they were waiting for. Something to say, he's an evil person. We don't have to talk to him, right? But in my mind, whenever I made that video, I was making that video because Harlan had made a video that got flagged and removed off YouTube called Masturbation with Bible Porn. And on it, he's actually hitting his hand together and screaming and saying, "Oh, oh, Jesus, I'm coming, Jesus, I'm coming, Jesus." Like, really, literally, he was saying this. All right. So, in my mind, I make that video because he was saying that people masturbate with the Bible. It's like watching porn. It's like, it's like you getting a thrill and, you know, you're really cheating though. You're not actually with Jesus. But I mean, he's like hitting his hand and yelling, "I'm coming, Jesus." But then whenever I make this video, he calls it filthy conversation and makes a video against me saying, you don't talk about my Savior like that. But then what he goes through in the video was exactly the point that I was getting at. Like he agreed with everything I said in the video that he made against me. So you see how it's all getting twisted up here. Like I even asked Jesus, and I saw Jesus, we were tied together, me and Harlan, and with our hands behind our backs in a chair, and ropes were tied on our hands, and an angel was walking around. And then he cut the ropes between both of our hands and said, I find no fault with either one of you. Because obviously what Harlan was doing was good for his heart, and what I was doing was good for mine. I didn't do anything bad in the spirit, and he didn't do anything bad by what he was doing either. So he was saying, you know, there's no problem here, and the angel cut us apart and said, I find no fault. So, all right. So, but then Harlan writes me off completely. No more talking to me or anything. He's going to talk bad about me. This is after I wrote his book. I wrote Harlan's book for him. In Harlan's book, he talks about the Quakers and how the Quakers were the last people who actually believed in God and they were fighting against the Bible. And that's how they got the name Quakers, because George Fox, who was a leader of the Quakers, went in and told the judge you should quake at the word of God because he tried to get him to swear on the Bible and he said no. So you've got all this stuff. But even in Harlan's book that I rewrote for him and added a chapter to, right? I did that, but then I start finding stuff out. Okay, once your mind opens up to this person might not be perfect, you know, you start finding stuff out. Well, I write that book, and well, I'll get into that in a minute. But I find out that who actually wrote his book for him was his Luciferian daughter. His daughter worships Lucifer, Diana Hay, also his wife's name, Diana. But his daughter worships Lucifer, and she messaged me on Facebook saying, "Oh, we hail Lucifer," and everything else, saying all this stuff about Harlan and his past marriage and everything else, and just all kinds of stuff. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of that and the cheating and everything exactly. I'm not here to dismantle Harlan or, you know, try and talk bad about him. Not like that. Not that. Anyway, not in his personal life and before then. So she wrote their book for them, and then after that, he said, "You cannot come back to my house. We have to be free and sanctified." So he doesn't let his children into his house anymore. His son plays in a band and owns a bar about 40 minutes from me. And I've thought about, and I still might, go talk to him and just get more of a thing. It'll be more closure for me from a guy who had such a pull on my life for such time to know his perspective on his father, right? Because he lives right down the road. He actually plays in my area with some bands. But so his daughter's Luciferian. She wrote the book, and then whenever they said she couldn't come back to the house, this is why I rewrote the book for them and put it on Amazon and used my social security number and everything to put it on there. And he wanted to make me an evangelist because I didn't know that he actually has. So all of a sudden I'm figuring out, I'm learning all this stuff. But back then, I mean, whenever I wrote his book a couple years before, right before I went to the farm, um, he told me he was going to make me an evangelist so we could get the book tax free because he has a legitimate religion, Miracle Life Revivals, right? So he's gone through the government and everything. And I kind of laughed. I was like, an evangelist and going through the government, this is weird to me. And he didn't like that I laughed about that. And I really think that that was the very beginning of what caused problems, is that he didn't like that I was laughing, like, oh, I'm going to be an evangelist. So we're having all these problems. I'm just trying to give you a thing of how it's going. And he hates me now because I made that video. That was his, oh, I got him now. I got him. I can reject him. So he was really happy after that. So now I'm feeling terrible every day. Terrible. And remember, I went up to Ohio seeing Stratton. This is very important. I went up to Ohio seeing Mark Stratton, Brother Stratton, the evangelist that I painted with. And I asked God why, and I thought it was from painting, but I didn't paint. So up until this point, I'm preaching the Bible's mark of the beast, which I continue to do for like a whole nother year, regardless of the trouble that we're having. But I'm like stressed. I'm like, how, God? I believed in the Spirit, and how can somebody see something in the Spirit opposite of what I see in the Spirit? And how could these miracles happen? And how could we be together and then all this stuff happen? And how can they reject me whenever I did nothing wrong? And how can, you see what I'm saying? They're still seeing visions of Jesus. I'm still seeing visions of Jesus. I'm still having miraculous things happen and healings and deliverance and everything else. And so are they. So how can this be going on? You see, I'm losing it. And then I got attacked by the devil so bad that Jesus told me not to tell anybody. Literally, I shouldn't tell anybody. But while I was awake, my head was spinning. I mean, and I didn't actually physically spin, but I was like dizzy, and there were these black holes opening up everywhere, like bam, bam. But that happened because of this. I let Harlan and them stop me, and I let Harlan and them. This is what happened. I was praying about Harlan, you know, and I got in the spirit, and I saw an angel walk up, and I pushed the angel like on his back, or I pushed Harlan over to the angel. And I said, here, ask Saint Michael about me. And in the vision, I said, is that Michael the Archangel? I said, are you Michael the Archangel? And he said, I'm Michael the Archangel. And he said, I've come to sit in with you. And he sat down by my feet. And I said, what is it that you do? And he stood up, and his hands went with like balls of lightning, right? Just flaming balls of lightning. And he like put his head back, and he had lightning in his hands with his hands down next to him. And he said, I charge men with sin. Now who should I charge? And in the spirit, I said, Harlan. But as soon as I came out of the spirit, I was like, no, God, don't charge Harlan. I love him. Don't do that. Charge the world. Charge these sinners out here. Don't charge Harlan, please. And then I start going through the worst struggle of my life. I mean, sweating every day, like emotionally so bad, and being attacked by a devil in a way that God told me not to tell anybody. And then I get in the spirit, and we get that devil off. This happened in the same day, but I'm being attacked for a while with that because I said, no, do not charge Harlan with sin. Don't charge Harlan with sin. And then I start getting attacked right after that. Well, then we get in this spirit, and my wife sees this thing about zapatos. Well, we didn't know what zapatos was. It's like a Mexican word for shoes, right? And you can actually buy zapatos shoes. And there was this big ugly devil, and she said, what is your name? And he said, Zapatos, because Harlan was trying to steal my witness, right? Harlan was trying to cut me off. He was making videos against me. He was telling people not to talk to me. He was telling people that I was not right and all this other stuff. He was saying that my filthy conversation was bad and all this, right? So as we're doing that, and then that stuff started leaving whenever we got Zapatos out of there, right? Shoes, again, mean witness. So he was trying to steal my shoes, my witness. Zapatos was the name of the demon. And then one night we're laying down, and I'm tired of this. And it was like something registered in my spirit, and I understood. And she didn't know what I was praying. She was meditating over here. And in my mind, I said, you know what, God? Charge Harlan with sin. I said, Michael, in my mind, are you still with me? Michael, are you still with me? Go charge Harlan with sin. He's the one that's done wrong here. Go charge him with sin. And I was like, and then she comes out of the spirit and she's like, wow, I saw something really weird and powerful. And she's like, I saw Michael the archangel. She didn't even know. She didn't know about the time before. She didn't know about the Michael the archangel. And she sees this while I'm saying in my head, if you're still with me. And she says she sees Michael the archangel, and she said it was like he was waiting for something. He was on a huge horse in like this battleground. And she said this letter was delivered to him, and the seal was broken on it, and it folded down 3 times, and said, Dear Michael. Well, it said, Dear Michael. It folded down and it said, Destroy Harlan. And she said, whenever she saw that, this sword came out of its sheath, and it was huge, and she heard it, and he reared up on his horse and took off. Right? Well, then it seemed to me like Harlan was doing just fine. Harlan's doing fine. So how, God, have you destroyed Harlan? How? Well, then he eventually told me how. He said he destroyed Harlan. See, a cat in the spirit means flesh. Whenever you see a cat in the spirit, it means flesh. Well, what Harlan did, what he showed me in the spirit, was Harlan thought that the flesh had to be perfect after that. So then Harlan's making videos literally saying you have to have holy flesh and Holy Spirit. Now he's preaching against gays. Now he's up there destroying everyone. He's saying, your grandma makes you a cake? Your grandma makes you a cake? You're going to hell. You should eat an apple over a cake. There's only 5 things in life you need. You only need corn, beans, fish, you know? Like, he's trying to tell you, only eat this. He's trying to tell you, just do this. He's trying to tell you, if your grandma makes you a cake, you're going to die. He's trying to tell you, he starts preaching against gays, homosexuality. He says your flesh has to be perfect and your spirit has to be perfect. He's doing all this stuff. So that's how Michael actually destroyed Harlan. That's how Michael the archangel destroyed Harlan in my defense. So we've got all this stuff happening. I can't get into all of it. All right. So, but look, a Luciferian wrote his book. I'm starting to notice things about him, which I'm coming back to. Like I said, there's just too much information. George Fox is in his book. All right. Well, this is what happens. I come to Ohio, and that vision I saw about Stratton, I forgot all about this. I had forgotten that this ever happened. And I'm in Ohio, and I wake up one morning, and it was like I was in a trance. I was still asleep, but I was like waking up, and I heard Balthazar, Balthazar, and it was calling Balthazar, but it was talking to me. And I raised up, and it said, "Wake up." It said, "You have work to do," right? And then a couple days later, I see a vision that says, "Mine anointed came down in Haiti." And Daniel, I see Daniel come down in Haiti. The Haiti earthquake was Daniel. 300,000 people died. Do we think we know who God is? Because this is what he showed me. 300,000 people died in the Haiti earthquake, right? And so, not yet. I don't get this yet. I don't understand what's going on yet. But I was called Daniel's name. I was called Belteshazzar, right? And then I start seeing these visions that Jesus already came back. That Jesus already came back. I also saw visions where God told me, he said, you've done the right thing. So I'm going to give you more understanding, basically. He said, between me and Harlan and other things, he said, you've done the right thing, because I wouldn't destroy Harlan online, regardless of what he was saying to me. I still didn't want him to be destroyed and everything, regardless of what it did to my health. And he was telling me, you've done good, right? So he was going to give me more understanding. And then I see that Jesus already came back. I see the temple being shot full of holes during the apostles' time, and Jesus telling me that he already came back. And I see like 10 more visions on this, that Jesus is saying that he already came back. And then I asked Jesus what to do about it. And I asked him what it meant, the Belteshazzar thing. What does that mean? Why are you calling me Daniel? And that's whenever I had a few more visions. All right. You remember I told you I used to go pray with Michael at the church all the time? And I would pray with Michael and pray with Michael, and then I just stopped and I was like, I'm not praying anymore. Well, one time I was at that church praying with him, and it was right after the Haiti earthquake. Right after the earthquake in Haiti. And right after that's whenever I got out of church, whenever I got out of the Bible, whenever I went to the community, whenever I said all this stuff's wrong, whenever I said, God, if you want me, come get me. All this is one of the most amazing things that have ever happened in my life. Like, by far, probably, just, it's up there. This is amazing, and in a good way. There's amazing things in bad ways. But so I'm up there and I see these. Okay, I was with Michael in the church, and I go up to the front, and I'm just doing that. But then I heard, "You're called to pioneer something, but you're going to be shot down by friendly fire, and you're anointed to die." And whenever I heard that, I went, like, I started travailing. I could not even talk. No, wait. First, I stopped and I like looked at Michael and I was like, I feel, because something swooped in behind me and I like felt it come into me and I got like, it felt like something broke over my head and ran down my whole body, right? I was like, I feel, and then it registered what it was, and I started to say the anointing. And as soon as I went to say the anointing, I fell down travailing. I was crying, screaming. I couldn't get up. Like, eventually, I had to beg God to let me get off the floor because I was thinking about how everybody was divided, how nothing was right, how everybody were liars, molesters, cheaters, and everything else. How the whole church is divided, and it seems like you cannot find the truth in this world. And I'm just down there banging on the floor, like begging God. And then I get to where I can't move. I'm like, ugh. And I'm like, God, if you don't get me out of this, I'm gonna die, right? Well, then I go up to Ohio, and I'd seen that vision about Mark Stratton, and I'd been called Balthazar, and I'm told that Jesus already came back. And I'm told all these things after me and Harlan have basically split up. We're not talking anymore. After his daughters come and put stuff on my Facebook page talking about how she's Luciferian. And she's the one who wrote their book and put it on a website for $6.66 so nobody would buy it. And that's why I rewrote it and put it back. Like I said, there's too much information, so I keep switching it back. But that's why I rewrote it for him and put it on Amazon because nobody would buy it because she posted it for that. After they kicked her out after she wrote the book, after they said, you can't come back to my house. So I'm here and I see these other visions and I see myself in that church where I was. And I see a vision where, all right, Daniel's standing in the back of the church, like watching, wondering if I'm going to be a good enough vessel for him, right? And I didn't know what preterism was. I didn't know about Jesus already coming back. I didn't know this kind of stuff until I had these dreams. But then I see myself standing in a church and Daniel walks up to me and Jesus comes up and he tells us, he says, Daniel, meet Derek. Derek, meet Daniel. And we shake hands. And then I turned around and Daniel walked into the back of me. And whenever I came out of the Spirit after that, I remembered what that evangelist said to me whenever I was 19, 20 years old. Right? One time he came to my house to pick me up and he was like in awe because he never has visions or dreams. And I was like I said, 19. This was like 10 years before I'm back in Ohio at the point where I'm talking to you now. And he said to me, he's like shaking his head because he didn't want to tell me, but he was like, I want to tell you this. He said, you're Daniel. And I don't tell people this because I hate bragging preachers and people who will brag about the 5 times they've seen Jesus or something amazing happen. So I don't tell people this, right? But I'm saying everything in this, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's going to get ugly. It's going to get bad. But so he told me, sitting in the car whenever he's coming to pick me up for work, he said, God told me to tell you this. He said, I had a vision and God told me to tell you this. And and like he shook his head and he was like, God told me to tell you that you're Daniel. And then he stopped and he said, you can't actually be Daniel. Okay. You cannot actually be Daniel. And he said, and you're called to tear down the idols out of your family's life. And he said, now I don't think that means you should go in and rip the TVs out of your parents' house. He said, I have no idea what it means, but I never have visions or dreams. And I had this one, and God told me blatantly, like plainly, to tell you this. I'd forgotten all about that. I'd seen so much crap in church that to me, that's just some kook talking, right? But then I see this vision where I had forgotten all about the guy's name. I forgot what his first name was. I had to look him up to figure out what his first name was again, because it was just called like Stratton Painting. But I go up to Ohio on a vision of seeing that guy, and I say, what is it I'm supposed to do up here? So I see these things about Daniel. I see that Daniel came down in the Haiti earthquake, and I see him waiting for me. And it was right after we had just been talking about that earthquake. Whenever I got anointed like that and fell on the ground, felt something walk into the back of me. And then I see these visions about Daniel walking into the back of me, and I'm called Balthazar whenever I'm raising up. So I prayed a couple more times and I saw other visions about it. I'll just tell you one more, but I did see some more about the Daniel thing. And like we were in this store and there was this like medicine bottle or something, and it had old writing on it, and everybody that came up would like push it away. Nobody wanted it, but it was the only bottle that I wanted. And he was like saying Daniel was looking for somebody that would allow him to give the truth, or say this thing. And it's the only one that I wanted. And he said, and you're the only one who wanted it. So I see that, and then I asked Jesus, what should I do with this revelation you've given me? Because all of a sudden my mind is blown. He told me he already came back, and I'm reading the Bible now like, oh my God, Jesus already came back. Jesus is here. Jesus came back, right? And um, what was I saying? All right, Jesus already came. Oh yeah, I had a vision, and I said, what do you want me to do with this revelation that you've given me? I was thinking, do you want me to make a video or something? And I see this vision of a sheep being sheared and Jesus sitting on a log. And I walked over to Jesus. He was like telling me to come here. I walked over to Jesus and he said, carve you out a pen and do what other men before you have done. And I carved a pen out of the log while the sheep was being sheared and I sat down to write on it. And I said, did you just tell me to write a book? And he showed me a library full of books, right? So then I was like, really? You want me to write a book? So I said, if you want me to write a book, what's the title of the book? And I see a table with all this food on it and it broke and all the food fell down on the ground. And he said, the table fell in heaven, right? So I write this book called The Table Fell in Heaven. The problem was I did not get over Harlan yet. So I write this book and he tells me to publish it. But afterwards, he showed me this thing that was baked in the oven he was telling me about my book. And there was this like bread baked in the oven and it was perfect on the bottom, but the second half of it was burnt. So I had to throw it out. Because what I did is it was amazing. Like Daniel was there. All right, well, first, for a couple weeks, I was trying to write on paper, trying to write on paper, trying to write on paper, trying to write this book, and I just couldn't. It was coming out flat, terrible. I'm throwing away papers, throwing away papers. And then one day I was like, I'm done. It's not coming. I don't understand what I saw. And I lay down in the recliner and I'm going to sleep. This is like 2 weeks after I stopped even trying to write the book. And I'm just taking a nap and I wasn't praying about anything. And I was in this room with this huge wood table and there was an ink thing. No, not yet. I was in this room with this huge wood table and somebody lit a candle behind me. And I looked behind me and it's Daniel the prophet. And he lit the candle and he handed me this cup of ink. And I said, what if I spill it? What if I spill it? What if I spill it? Like I was so scared. And I sat the cup of ink down on the table and then I had like, you know, I believed that this was going to happen. And I said, I work your word. And as soon as I woke up, I went to the computer and I went to try to type and I was like, no, nothing's coming, nothing's coming, I'm going. So I got up to leave and then God instantly, and then I wrote for the next 21 days. I didn't drink or eat hardly anything. I was in a room for 21 days. I couldn't tell if it was daylight or not. But I'm walking away and then he says, like instantly in my head, I said, as the earth is suspended in the heavens and is known among the stars, so our story also begins and ends in the heavens. And like, as soon as I said that, bam, I just wrote. I wrote for 21 days. I got the whole thing done in like 21 days, right? I posted it, but I still had Harlan in my head. I was literally supposed to be going by what Daniel said. And the whole time I'm doing it, things that I did not believe that I thought people were crazy for before, because I'd heard other people talking about this, were happening. Whenever I would do something right, there would be like these flashes all over the place, like little angel flashes, right? And whenever I do something wrong, they'd go away, so I'd delete it and I'd start over, and then they'd be there. Or whenever it was something major that I needed revelation on, because I got revelation on preterism like bam, 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 like Jesus already came back because Daniel was there. I swear I'd be like typing, and this huge yellow flash would be next to me whenever I was getting some new revelation that I never had before. So it was an amazing time to write that book, and that's why he said Mark Stratton, who I had not thought about in 10 years, because he said, you're Daniel and you're called to tear down the idols out of your family's life. So I'm getting the Bible out of people's lives, and Daniel came to me to give me this revelation that I didn't already know. So this is like the next chapter, all right? And me and Harlan are really going to have problems after this. And then he makes videos lying about me, and we wind up getting grouped together and traveling the country and all this other stuff. There's tons more stuff to go. But this was like the next chapter whenever I wrote that book, and it's still not revised because I wanted to wait until I knew for sure what to get out of it. But Harlan was still in my head, and like half the book is still the Bible's the mark of the beast stuff. But the other half was Daniel and great revelations. And then I realized what preterism was like after that and knew about people talking about that. So yeah, I wrote a book. We went to Ohio for that. Way more crazy, insane things. All right. Thanks a lot, guys.